Um, I'm going to record this, so if that changes the way that you choose to participate, please know that in advance. But otherwise, I will turn the meeting over to Danielle from Turnitin, who will tell us all the things that we need to know. Go for it, Danielle.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here. I'm joining you from snowy Pittsburgh and from Turnitin's customer onboarding team. I'm going to be leading your training session today, which I'm very excited about. I would love, while I'm going through some of my intro slides, if you could all let me know, I can see all your names, so you don't necessarily have to give me your name, but I'd love to know what your role is at the university. So, what you teach. I find it uh, cool to see who we have in the room. So if you want to put that into chat, that'd be great. While we are doing that, just in case we have anybody who's brand new to Turnitin, which I'm sure all of you have some familiarity with the tool, I want to let you know exactly what Turnitin is going to be able to help you with. So, if you have any concerns around academic integrity issues in your classroom, and that could include things like uh, collusion. So if you have concerns around students sharing work with one another, Turnitin is a tool that will be able to help. If you have any concerns around plagiarism, we all know what that is. If you have any concerns around identifying skill gaps in your students' writing, so that could include things like students who are not quoting or citing properly. If you have any concerns around the responsible use of AI, which I think we all do, we're going to be talking quite a bit about that today, then Turnitin is a tool that will be able to help you. So we have 60 minutes together today. And this is how we are going to use those 60 minutes. So I'm going to give you a quick refresher on the functionality of the Turnitin report. I'm going to talk about the similarity report. I'm going to talk about the AI writing report. And then we are going to explore a brand new, very easy to use integration in Canvas, which we're very excited about. I know some of you have already found it, which is exciting. But we're going to go over this new integration path in Canvas. And then we're going to take some time to dig into the report a little bit deeper. I know there are lots of questions about it. And I am here to answer your questions. So we're really going to be giving just sort of a holistic overview of Turnitin today. And for those of you who might be new to the tool, you'll walk away with a lot more information today, which is great. These are our learning outcomes. So we're going to go over this new way to add Turnitin to Canvas assignments, which again, I think a lot of you are going to be really excited about. Some of you have already found out how to do that. We will review the similarity in the AI report, and then I will point you to some very helpful resources, help guides, our help center, places where you can go to get your questions answered after today. Um, how to engage, ask questions. Uh, this training's for you. I want to make sure your questions get answered, so ask away. Um, I don't ask for much participation. It is Friday afternoon. Um, so if I ask you to participate, which all of you are, thank you for everybody who's plugging their info into chat. I love to see all the content areas we have. I will take a second to look at that here in a moment. So participate in chat. And then my other tip is to just take notes, have a Google Doc, Word doc, notebook open, someplace where you can jot down tips and tricks and best practices that I share. What to expect after the training. We are obviously recording this session. A copy of this recording will be shared with you, along with a brief survey, and then any resources that I talk about or share, I will include in a follow-up email to your administrators who can forward that along to you all. So in case you open up a link and you love it, and then you X out of it and you can't find it again, I'll make sure that it's included in the follow-up email. Okay. Before I go to the next slide, I want to take a look and see who we have in the room. Okay, so director and associate professor in library and information sciences. That's great. Associate professor for faculty. I teach dance. That's amazing. Psychology, library science, world lit, world languages. We have anthropology, associate professor of nursing, sociology, anesthesia program, elementary ed. How fun. Very cool. Social work, Okay, we have what feels like every single content area represented that would be presumably using Turnitin. So that's amazing. Awesome. Love to see all the different folks that joined. Okay, quick poll. I'm sure you're all quite familiar with Turnitin, but you know what happens when you assume. There's always somebody here who has never used before. So I just want to take a quick poll. If you've used Turnitin before as an instructor, ooh, Writing Center Director, we love. Thumbs up if you used it. It's always fun too to have experience Turnitin as a student. So if you could give me a okay. And then if you've never, wow, Tiffany, I think you might be our lone newbie. It seems like vast majority have used before. Oh, we have another newbie. That's always exciting. And we have some folks who have used, or one person who's used as a student. New to higher ed, how exciting. Okay. Lovely. Okay, so vast majority of folks have used. So some of today will be review. I'm sure you have some questions. Hopefully the training today will answer some of them. And for my two newbies, you're going to learn a lot today. I'm always very excited to introduce folks to Turnitin. Okay, lovely. So we're going to talk really quickly about why Turnitin is a very helpful tool for you to use. I always like to start answering that question with Turnitin's mission. What is our mission as a company? We want to empower your students to do their best original work. That sounds lovely. How do we actually do that? So what you're seeing over here on the left-hand side of the screen is the Turnitin report, which I'm sure those of you that have used Turnitin before, you're quite familiar with. And those of you that haven't used Turnitin, this is what the Turnitin report looks like. So one of the things that we do with this Turnitin report to help empower your students to do their best original work is we provide you, the instructor, with a couple of data points to help you ensure that your students were the ones that indeed produced this piece of work. So one of those data points is the similarity score. We've been doing similarity scores for the past 25 years. So that's what most people think about when they think about Turnitin. More recently, we've added in the ability to detect for potential AI use in the student submission. So that is another data point that you have available to you. And so I'm going to talk at a high level about how each of these scores are calculated, what's taken into consideration when we're reviewing them, just so we're all on the same page. And then we're going to move ourselves over into Canvas, and I'm going to show you this new and very exciting integration path that we've set up for you that I think will alleviate a lot of pains you've been feeling thus far. So I'm going to do a quick rundown about similarity because most of you are pretty familiar with it. So similarity score, how does it work? You will add Turnitin to your Canvas assignments, or you will build a Turnitin assignment in Canvas. We will compare this piece of student work to our very large database, and we will surface matches. We match against the internet, other student papers, scholarly publications. You can see a count of just how many millions and billions of pieces of content we have in those repositories. Now, I know you've been Turnitin users for a while, and I like to show people things that they don't know about. And this is one that most people don't know about, but it's pretty exciting. I'm going to drop this resource into chat, database content. So this particular website is going to cover some of the content that we have in our database. So it's going to show you like the different sorts of things that we have, different publishers that we work with. But this is the really exciting thing. All non-English languages that we support lots of them, which is also very exciting. This, I bet you didn't know this. And so maybe you do, but if there's a specific URL that you want to be absolutely sure is crawled by Turnitin, I mean, you saw the size of our database, it is enormous. But if there is a specific URL that you want to make sure is crawled, you can tell our content team, hey, can you please make sure this URL is crawled? And as long as it's not something that's behind a paywall, and if it's behind a paywall, if we have a partnership with them, then we're working with them. But sometimes we can't get behind it. But you can send it over anyway and just let our content know, hey, we would love for that URL to be crawled. So you can tell our content team directly, which is pretty neat. And if it's already crawled, they'll tell you. But I just wanted to throw that out there because I thought that was exciting. Okay, anyway, so whenever we're evaluating the student submission, if we identify a match, the smallest match is 6 words. That's the smallest match I've ever seen. So if it's 6 words in close proximity to one another, we will pull it as match and we'll show it to you. And we'll tell you where that match is coming from. So is it matching to an internet source? Is it matching to another student's paper? Is it matching to a publication? So we give you full visibility into where that match is coming from now. If you've used Turnitin before, you know the answer to this. Is every single similarity match plagiarism? The answer is no. If you have quoted material, article titles, book titles, common wording, all that's going to pull as a match. We give you the ability to exclude content, to refine the report a little bit, to make it a little bit easier for you to identify what matches might be of concern, which ones aren't. I will show you how to do that once we get into Canvas because this functionality is still available even in the new integration path workflow that we have. So I'll show you that. But a really, really, really important thing to keep in mind with my folks who are new is that what Turnitin does is we provide you with information. So we're not telling you if there's plagiarism present in the paper or not. All we're saying to you is, hey, there's some content that's similar. You need to review the report, and ultimately you, the instructor, get to decide, is this plagiarism, is it not? We just make it a little bit easier for you because we're providing you with some information to help you draw that conclusion. Okay, so that's overview of the similarity score. Now let's talk about the AI writing report. I'm going to talk at just a high level about how this works, and then we will drill down much, much deeper once we get into a sample student paper. So the AI writing report, there is no setting that you need to adjust in order for this score to populate. What is needed is simply 300 words of prose text in long form writing format. At the moment, we support 3 different languages for our AI writing report. For similarity, we support over 30. The AI report is going to be expanding in language capabilities here very, very soon. I will share our roadmap with you here in a moment. But let me talk for a minute about the 300 words. So as long as there are at least 300 words of prose text in long form writing format, Turnitin will evaluate that piece of work for potential AI use, and we will produce a score for you. Now, some people are upset by that 300 words because it's a lengthy amount of content. And so that disqualifies a lot of assignments. So you might be wondering, why the 300 words? Can you lower it? Let me explain why the 300 words is the minimum. So before we roll out our AI detector, we, as a company, want to ensure that the frequency with which we identify human written text as AI generated happens with no sort of frequency. So that's our false positive rate. How often does your AI detector highlight human written text as AI generated? We want to keep that false positive rate under 1%. So it will happen, but it should not happen with any sort of frequency. So in order to maintain that low false positive rate, that under 1% false positive rate, the way we test is we run our AI detector on 700,000 pieces of academic writing that were written pre-2020. So before a large language model could have been used to generate any content in these 700,000 pieces of work, we run our AI detector on it. So if anything pops up as potentially AI generated, we know it's a false positive, right? And so that is how we calculate our false positive rate. Now, there is no AI detector that currently exists that works 100% of the time. I wish we could give that to you, and we are trying to give that to you, but you have to make some trade-offs. So one trade-off is we want our false positive rate to be as low as possible. In order to maintain that, it needs to be 300 words. When we initially rolled our detector out, it was at 150 words, and what we found when it was out in the wild, the false positive rate increased. So there were situations where more frequently our detector was highlighting human written text as potentially AI generated. That is very unhelpful. Again, we don't want that happening with any sort of frequency. So that's why we have the 300 words. We've made that trade-off. We know that we're going to be losing out on lots of assignment types, but we want to maintain that low false positive rate. So that is the decision we made as a company. So I hope you understand. So that's why the 300 words are there. Again, there's no assignment setting or anything that you need to do, just 300 words, and we will evaluate it for potential AI use. Now, if there's not enough words, or if it's an outline, it's just not the right format, you'll see this. That just means there's not enough content in there for us to evaluate for potential use. So that's what you'll see. You can still get a similarity score, no problem. Similarity is very, very flexible. But with AI, it's a little bit more stringent. for obvious reasons. Okay, this is a sample of what the AI report could look like. We are able to identify 3 different types of AI generated content. One is AI generated only. This can take a couple of different forms. So this could be your students going to ChatGPT and saying, hey, can you write that argumentative essay for my environmental science class? I don't feel like writing it. It composes the work, and the student, it doesn't matter if they paste it into their document, it doesn't matter if they type it word for word. If that content is in their paper that they uploaded, we'll be able to identify it. Now, there's another way that students can generate text that's not going directly to a large language model. So something that's going to come up, and we'll just address it now, it's outlined in our FAQs, is Grammarly. So, or tools like Grammarly. If you've conversed with students at all about an AI report, you may have heard them say, well, I just used Grammarly. Okay, let's break that down. How does that work? So if students are using Grammarly to correct their grammar, it's not going to show up as AI generated. So what's going on? There are premium versions of Grammarly that will draft content for you. It will make content sound more concise. It'll make content sound more professional. It will draft an outline for you. It'll draft content for you. And so those tools partner with one of the AI companies. And so it's sort of like having ChatGPT as a browser extension. And so if students are using these tools, right, they're basically injecting AI into their paper. Again, if they're just using it to correct their grammar, it's not going to show up as AI generated, is if they're using the premium versions of the tool to generate content. So if you haven't checked out what it can do, I would encourage you to do so. I think that's where a big disconnect is coming. Students don't realize what they're doing. Instructors don't realize the functionality of some of these tools. And so if they're using these more premium versions and they have the tool composing work for them, it's going to show up as AI generated only. So that's just something to keep in mind, that it's not just students going directly to ChatGPT or Gemini. It could be students using these plugin tools that have valid academic parts of them, but other parts, you might not be aware of. And again, your students might just say like, oh, I'm using an educational tool, not realizing. So AI generated only. It doesn't matter where they're getting that AI generated content from, but if it's making it into their paper, it's going to show up. The other 2 types of AI generated content that we can identify are bypass techniques. So if you've used Turnitin for any length of time, you know that students 20 years ago were already looking for ways to subvert similarity detection. They would add white characters in between sentences. They would swap Latin characters for Cyrillic characters. Anytime you build a product like Turnitin, students are going to try and find ways to circumvent it. Is AI any different? No. So what ended up happening was students were using AI paraphrasing tools and humanizers to try and bypass our AI detector, and they were effective, as were the similarity bypass techniques for a while. So if you're not familiar with AI paraphrasing tools or word spinners or humanizers, again, I would encourage you to look them up. They look a little bit like Google Translate. So the idea is that students can take their AI generated text, they can run it through this AI paraphrasing tool or this humanizer, and it will make the content undetectable to an AI detector. And it could bypass our detector for a while. And then we realized what was happening. We expanded our detection capabilities. And so now if students are using these bypass techniques, we can still identify it. So that's anything highlighted in purple. So those are the 3 different types of AI generated content. So AI generated only, again, doesn't quite matter where it's coming from, but if it's coming from an AI model, whether directly or through a plugin, it'll show. And then anything that was ran through an AI paraphrasing tool or humanizer. So I will talk a lot more about how the AI detector works. I'll share resources about it. I'll talk about the scores and things like that once we get into an actual student paper, but just so you have an idea of the functionality, that's a preview. Okay, so let's talk about workflow. So we have introduced a new integration path, like I said, that some of you have already found, that is going to be a little bit easier to use. And I think you'll be very excited about it. The workflow is really two steps for you. Um, you are going to add Turnitin to your Canvas assignment, and then students will upload their work, and then you can review the similarity score in the AI writing report. And that's it. You grade with SpeedGrader. You leave feedback in SpeedGrader. Um, you really are just using Turnitin as a complement to that assignment workflow. So you can, check their similarity score in their AI writing report before you start leaving feedback. But it's fully integrated into that workflow. So I think that will be very exciting for folks. And for students, it's like they're uploading to a regular Canvas assignment, which is exciting. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump over to Canvas, and if you want to follow along with me, you can. I'm going to show you how to use this tool as if we were building an assignment from scratch. I'm sure many, many, many of your assignments are already built. So you can just edit a Canvas assignment and add Turnitin. One thing to note, though, is you don't want to add it to an assignment that already has student submissions made to it. So if students have already submitted their work, you can't Turnitin after the fact. It has to be before. So it's just something to keep in mind. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to build an assignment from scratch, but if you have an existing one, you can always edit it and Turnitin the same way. I did just drop a help guide in chat for everybody. So it's going to follow this workflow that we're going to cover right now. Okay. I'm going to
Can
pretend
I
like I'm
jump
building a
in?
camp.
Uh,
Oh,
is it
yeah,
possible? Could you possibly make your screen a little bigger?
sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is that better?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, lovely. So, um, we have an assignment name. I'm not going to go over all of the assignment details in Canvas because I'm not a Canvas expert. But what I do know is that this will work with group assignments, and it will adhere to the submission attempts that you set. So those are two things that I can share. Now, where you want to go if you want to add this new Turnitin integration, and you want to add Turnitin into your Canvas assignments, is under submission type. So you have to select online, and then you have to choose text entry and or file uploads. Now, if you do not do this, you are going to be very, very lost. You won't see anything. You'll think it's broken. You have to have one or both of these selected. So these are the two online entry options that Turnitin will support, which is file upload and or text entry. Again, you don't have to have both. You just have one or the other. And this plagiarism review option will appear right here under submission attempts. From there, you're going to click your drop-down menu. Your Turnitin is going to be named something slightly different than mine. That's okay. You're going to select your Turnitin option, and then you'll see some settings appear. And again, your settings are going to look slightly different than mine. That's okay. But that's all you do. So again, just to recap, online, file upload and or text entry, plagiarism review, you select Turnitin option, and then all you have to do is consider these assignment settings, hit save and publish, and you're good to go. So for those of you that have used Turnitin before, none of these settings are going to be new. Do you want a collusion check? Do you want to make any exclusions from the similarity report? Which of the repositories do you want to check against, and when do you want your student to see their similarity score? That's it. Those are the only four settings that you have to, or three settings rather, that you have to consider. So it really streamlines the process, fewer assignment settings that you need to worry about. And that's it.
Danielle, I'm in mine just to see what it's looking like. I'm hoping some other people are. So we have student repository, website content, periodicals, journals, publications. Can you just again, for everybody, talk about what it means, the student repository, and why you might check that or uncheck that.
Sure. So the student repository is a repository of student papers that were stored in this database because instructors were concerned about students sharing work. So if you choose this top option, store submissions in standard paper repository, essentially what you're saying is, I am concerned that my students could potentially be sharing work with one another. That could be in your class currently. That could be, I teach this class every single semester. And so a student who took my class last year might be sharing work with students who are taking my class this year. If you're concerned around any sort of sharing of work, standard paper repository is what you want to choose. So what that will do is that will retain a copy of the student submission made to this assignment in the student paper repository. So if two students are sharing work with one another currently in your class, between classes, year over year, with a student who goes to the other university down the street, who also licenses Turnitin, you'll be able to see those matches. If you are not concerned about collusion, then you can choose do not store the submitted papers. All that means is that we're not going to retain a copy of that student paper in the repository. We'll still compare it against the existing repository, but we just won't retain a copy of it.
Sorry, but that's only in our repository. It's not going out into other institutions. Or yes, it does. I just heard concern about not wanting the students to submit their paper because it's training the model, and so just looking
it's
for
not.
clear.
It's not training anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question real quick.
Yes.
Historically, we had to go into Turnitin and make the assignment and all that jazz. By doing this, I don't have to go into Turnitin and make the assignment anymore. Is that correct?
Yes.
I freaking love that.
That's
Correct.
why we're
Yay.
having the workshops, Daisy.
Yay. I'm happy to hear it. Okay, so
I just
Stacy
had a
brings up.
clarifying question about, in follow up to Kelly's, because I've heard this concern from folks too. The student repository, if you choose to store the submitted papers, that's the vast Turnitin repository, where then if I taught my class at another institution, that institution has access to those papers as well. That's not a USM limited database, correct?
I can double check hold on. Let me look at your. I don't know if you have a private repository or not. I mean, actually, based off of Lynn Lee's screenshot that she sent, no. So we have 2.4 billion student papers in that repository. They are not visible to anyone else at all, though. So I will show you if I see, when I'm reviewing my sample student paper, if I am, if I see a student paper match, it's just going to tell me the institution. I can see no other identifiable student information with that, obviously, because of privacy laws. So really what that's doing is it's just saying, hey, there's something similar. Talk to your student about that. Even though you can't see the full visibility of that document, that is sort of the purpose of the repository. To be honest, I don't think collusion is the way students are cheating right now. That was a way that they were cheating pre-AI. I think the vast majority of students at this point would not bother to ask their friend for their paper. I think they're probably just going to go to ChatGPT or Gemini and ask them to do it for them. So, I mean, if this doesn't sit right with you, you can choose do not store the submitted papers. That is an option for you. I will say we have gone to court twice, and we've won both times under fair use. So the judges ruled both times that storing the papers in the repository are considered fair use. We just want to make sure that you, the instructor, know that if students are colluding with one another, that we pull that up for you. Again, I don't think that's a terribly popular way right now that students are doing it, so you can always choose do not store. The other thing to keep in mind is I saw somebody talk about journals. The publishers don't typically use the student paper repository. Most publishers use our product called Authenticate, which is specifically made for journals, and it does not look at a student paper repository at all. If you were working on something that was going to be published, just to be sure, you could choose Do Not Store, but I think the majority of those publishers they're not concerned with the student repository. Authenticate doesn't even check against it.
I think that is like for the pay ones for sure. They're using the one you're discussing, but a lot of ones that are run out of like universities and their digital repositories are using Turnitin.
Okay,
Just
yeah. So if they use Turnitin, they have access to the student repository. But yeah, for I think the big publishers, they use the Authenticate version that we have. Yeah. Okay, Nicole.
I might be getting ahead of the game, but are you going to talk about rubrics at some point?
I am not. So this particular integration path allows you to grade with SpeedGrader exclusively.
So if we create a rubric in Canvas, Turnitin's not going to interfere with our using it, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
great. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna show you now. You're asking great questions. Thank you. I just saved and published that assignment. So my inbox just looks like a regular old Canvas. I could create my rubric right here. I can find one of my rubrics that I built through Canvas. And doesn't look any different than what you're probably used to with a regular Canvas assignment. Now, student side looks identical. With one exception, there's a little checkbox that just says, essentially, Turnitin is going to be used on this assignment. Your student checks that box, they'll upload their paper. It gives knowledge to them that Turnitin is being used. So if you were outsourcing your work, you might want to think twice. But there's awareness. They're going to know that it's happening, which is good. But otherwise, nothing changes about their upload. It's just going to look like they're uploading to a regular Canvas assignment. Now, you might be wondering, where do I go to access the report? SpeedGrader. So the idea
One more
is,
quick question,
sure.
Danielle.
Yes.
So is the student in that case where the student has to check a checkbox, are they able to submit their paper without checking that box?
No, they cannot.
No, so it's a required checkbox.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So they check the box to acknowledge that Turnitin is being used, and then they can upload it. And that'll happen on every single assignment. And again, I don't think it's a bad thing because it gives them visibility, which is good.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So sorry, and if this is not the appropriate time, feel free to tell me to wait. But I was just thinking, so I recently graduated from a USM program, and I got very frustrated because I was told to submit my paper multiple times. And the reference list kept getting flagged as like my Turnitin score was insane. And it was due to the same reference list, which obviously wasn't going to change. And I see the setting, I've never used it as a faculty. And so I see the option to exclude the bibliographic, which I understand. My concern with that is I just from my experience in trying to detect AI use myself, the reference list it plays a role in that, so I don't know if you have any insight or kind of can even try to figure out what I'm asking here, of like what's the best way to go about that. I can say from a student side that was very disappointing to me, and the faculty member I don't think really was understanding of like I'm not sure what you want me to do about my reference list. That's not going to change. I understand you don't want me to just copy somebody else's reference list. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like the
Totally.
best way to go about that.
Yep. No, that's a great question. So I have a couple thoughts. One, Stacy has a good point. She only has them submit the final paper. The other option could be you have them submit the drafts or the drafts prior to the final, but you don't store them anywhere. So that could be one potential. The other one is, and this is a hard one to untrain people from. And I understand the inclination. And my folks who are new to Turnitin, you're probably thinking this right now. What's a good similarity score? The answer is there isn't one. And that's because Turnitin is not identifying or telling you if something's plagiarized. All we're doing is telling you if something's similar, right? Looking at that 52%, I mean, that means over half the student papers matching back to the database, but I have no idea what's making up that number. Is it the reference list? Is it a bunch of quoted material? I made no exclusions from the report. I have no idea. On the flip side, if this number were 3%, oh, 3% is low. But when I open it up and it's plagiarized material, suddenly that 3% isn't okay anymore. So I think people are looking for Turnitin to tell them something that we just can't, unfortunately. So ultimately, what we want is we want this score to invoke curiosity, to better understand, well, what's actually happening here? It requires human review. The other thing that you'll notice, there's no AI score being pulled into SpeedGrader. So in order for you to actually see not only what's making up the similarity score, which you should always open up the report, but also to see the similarity report or the AI report, you want to click on that score. Now, I know that's an extra click, but here's the trade-off. If you don't make that click and you start grading this piece of student work and they actually didn't write it, that's a waste of your precious time. So I think it is a good idea to open up the report. We have it organized here in categories. You can leverage those filters if you want. You can toggle them on or off too. So you can exclude the bibliography, which if we scroll down here, here's the bibliography. It's all highlighted in red because obviously it's not cited or quoted material, and that's fine. We would expect that to match back to the database. We can exclude the bibliography while we're reviewing the report, and then we can always include it. Even if you make it at the assignment level too, these are flexible. You can toggle them on or off. So you have the ability to, ignore that for now, just focus on good old-fashioned similarity matches, and then you can include it later.
So if you don't store it in the repository, then it wouldn't, like if I had them submit the same paper multiple times, then it wouldn't flag their paper as plagiarism.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So do you think that the recommendation, and maybe this is, you're the wrong person for me to be asking, so sorry, but do you think that the recommendation then would be getting away from the rubric containing some sort of number, like percentage that you have to stay under, and the verbiage be more like there's no evidence of plagiarism or AI use or to whatever degree?
Yeah, Lindley, I think yes, that would be a suggestion. I mean, I
Okay.
think that is Danielle's point is that the percentage includes
Is
all
the
of these
problem.
aspects. And so if
Mhm.
you have something in which you're like, you just have an automatic, if it's 30% or above, then you get this score on your rubric, then that's not using the Turnitin tool in the way it's intended because as Danielle just said, it needs that human review. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
It
Yeah.
does, yes, thank you.
And like I say, I understand the desire for a tool that would be, save a little bit more time, but we ultimately want the instructors to, be the ones to review. So the paper here written by Nelson has a 49% similarity score, and it's based off of the total word count here. So based off of the 860 words, 49% is matching back to the database. We can see a breakdown of where these matches are coming from. This is going to help expedite how you investigate. So anything highlighted in green means that content cited and quoted. I would spend no time investigating that. Now, I understand I'm seeing a lot about AI is fabricating references. So We at the moment are not the most helpful with that, but it's something that we're aware of. And there's a need, and there's been a need for a long time. I don't know how much we're going to be prioritizing and building that out. This actually might be a good opportunity to share our roadmap. So the roadmap has content that we're working on, and you can vote on things in the roadmap and tell our team why you want it or why you think you need to prioritize this to not be later, but first. So you can, let our team know. Anyway, I digress. Anything highlighted in my opinion, and again, this depends, green, yellow, or orange, I would not spend my time investigating. Unless, again, you thought it was maybe potentially a fabricated reference. But anything highlighted in orange or yellow is indicating a skill gap. That just means that your students aren't quite attributing the expert voice properly. So here they have the quotation marks. That's great, but they're missing a citation. They need to fix that. So this is technically plagiarism. It seems more inadvertent. So you could toggle over to SpeedGrader and say add a citation here. This one, same deal. They have their citation lovely, forgot their quotation marks. Maybe we tell them you need to paraphrase. You can toggle over to SpeedGrader, you need to paraphrase. Okay, we can keep reading. But I wouldn't spend my time investigating where those came from. Anything highlighted in red, you want to pay a little bit closer attention to, but obviously, like this example, this is just a book title and an author's name. We're not concerned about that, so we're not going to investigate that. Obviously, I mentioned green. I'm not concerned about either. That's cited and quoted. Now, any match like this, we would want to investigate, so you can see this is matching to an internet source, 130 of Nelson's words, 16% of his paper. We can just, view side by side. There's literally no denying that he did not write this. So, we'll talk to him about that. Now, this is a match to an outside student paper submission. We can see that it's coming from the Art Institute, but that's about all we can see because privacy. So we can see it's matching to 75 of Nelson's words, 9% of his paper, but that's all you can see. So you could stop there and say, okay, when you're talking to Nelson, like, hey, what's going on with this match? I want to show you, though, something that you can do. This is more for my users who are experienced. For my brand new folks, I don't normally show this in a first training. But since the majority of us are comfortable, I want to show you. So if you ever wanted to dig deeper into a match, what you can do is you can navigate away from match groups over to sources. What sources is going to allow you to do, so I'm going to click on this match right here. Okay, so it's showing me that Art Institute, but look at this. View other sources. Turnitin's database is enormous. Where else might this content live in the database? Is it possible that it lives only in this Art Institute online student paper? Sure, maybe. But if we view other sources, look at all the other places that this content lives. So yes, it lives in the Art Institute online, but it also lives on playandlearn.com and this website and a Horry Georgetown technical student paper. So this content right here. Now, why are we showing the Art Institute as the most likely match? Number of words. That's why it has the highest number of words. So this match here, which is an online source, the reason why it's not matching or why it's not the most likely match is, again, because of 2 words. And if we look at it, I literally think it's benefits of is the difference. Yeah, it is because the is down there. So it's just benefits of is the difference. So that's if you want to dig deeper into a student match and better understand where else might this content live, do that. Because what we're telling you in these match groups is we think this is the most likely match because it has the highest number of words. But when you drill down, sometimes in those situations you see like, okay, actually he probably did not copy off the Art Institute online student. He probably copied off of one of the websites. So just want to call that out that if you want to dig a little bit deeper, you can do that if you want. But obviously only do that for concerning matches. Okay. The other 2 matches down here, yes, they're not cited or quoted. Um, it is ultimately up to instructor discretion. Again, we're not telling you if something's plagiarized or not. We're just showing you, hey, this is matching back to the database. This, for me, 13 words. Children today are spending significantly less time outdoors compared to previous generations. Um, I don't think that's plagiarism. I'm fine with that. Okay, Ashley has clarification. Highest number of words that match. Yes, 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 yes. So highest number of words that match to another source. So that is the highest number of word match is going to show as what we think is the most likely under match groups. But yeah, you can always drill down and see where else this content exists. So like this content also exists actually in a couple of other student papers, but we think it's the website. But here, the reason it's the student paper is because it does have the highest number of words.
And I think that's also been some of the concern that I've heard was in papers that, and I think you're doing a great job of demystifying it, but in papers that might have a lot of technical knowledge, right, where there's going to be very common words that it's
Yes.
getting high score here. And so perhaps one of those issues is exactly what you're showing here, student papers and lots of different sources. And again, that language that would often be bundled together. And I analyzing that correctly?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Another thing that you can do, so the example that I just showed, so this is not the best example, but absolutely if you're writing any sort of technical paper, uh, there's certain phrases that there's literally no other way to say that phrase, especially in healthcare, science fields, really any sort of technical writing that you're doing. It's going to have matches to content that's not concerning at all. This excludes small matches, especially for lengthier documents, is really a game changer. So for a 2-page document, I mean, you can read that through that in a couple of minutes. I don't think this particular exclusion is that helpful. But if you're reading through a paper that's 20 pages long, 50 pages long, this excludes small matches is such a game changer. It's going to get rid of whatever threshold you set here. So for me, when I'm reading through, a high school student's English paper, I'm not concerned about anything that's 15 words or less. I just couldn't be bothered. So what I can do is I can apply those filters and it's going to get rid of every single one of those smaller matches. So that got rid of the book title and the author name. That got rid of that common wording match that I saw that was not concerning to me. So for lengthier papers, this particular exclusion in particular, I think is going to be very, 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 very helpful because it gets rid of some of those smaller matches. You can also exclude quoted material, obviously the bibliography, and that can help too. And again, it really depends on the length and sort of what you're most concerned about. But those small matches, I think, can really, really help for sure. Okay, so I do want to make sure we have time to talk about AI because I know there are a lot of questions about it, so I'm going to jump to that. So actually, let me back up. One thing I noticed as I was reading through Nelson's paper is yes, there's definitely a plagiarism issue right here, but there's also something odd, I feel like, going on in these last 3 paragraphs. The only matches down here are those like smaller common wording matches. There's no quoted material, no cited material, no plagiarized material down here. It just doesn't quite match what he was doing in the first few paragraphs. So I already am noticing that something's odd is going on. Then we're going to look at his AI writing report. And I'm going to use it to take me to where we believe AI generated content is in Nelson's paper. And it's the last 3 paragraphs. This is actually very unsurprising to me. After reading through that report, I thought something was suspicious. This helps to validate that suspicion. This is a perfect training example. This is ideally how we would love faculty to use the tool. We want it to be a way to validate suspicion that you might have as you're reading through the paper. You can use this to ask your student questions. So you could ask, Nelson, things like, talk to me about how you constructed your counter argument. Why did you decide to argue that point? And just wait to see what he'll say. Maybe you bring him in on office hours. But it gives you the opportunity to ask pointed questions about parts of their paper that seem to be concerning. What we don't want is we don't want you to negatively impact a student's grade based solely off this report. So we don't want to look at this 24 and just immediately fail Nelson without talking to him first. We need to talk to him. He might say something like, "Oh, I used Grammarly." And then you might realize, like, "Oh, okay, well, let's actually talk about that. And maybe you can show me exactly the tool that you used." And then you will both realize, like, "Oh, that's actually not a tool that you should use whenever you're drafting this type of paper for my class." Um, so we want to make sure that we're having a conversation. Um, the way that the tool works, I'll talk a little bit about that. So humans write very idiosyncratically and inconsistently. Large language models do not, at least for now. The way that they write is they're looking for the next most probable word. Um, they're looking for the next most probable word based off of all of their training data. That's how they string their responses together. That produces a writing signature that differs from a human writing signature, and so that's how we're able to distinguish between the two. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind. One, large language models are improving often. AI companies are making new releases. So here's a good example of things to keep in mind. ChatGPT came out with their newest model in August, right in time for back to school. Our AI detector wasn't very good at detecting this new ChatGPT model. So our AI team got to work expanding detection capabilities, running that test to make sure we were maintaining that low false positive rate. And we released an update to the detector in October. We didn't make a big announcement, but it took us a couple months to make sure that the AI detector was working to capture this new writing signature that was produced by the new GPT model release, and we released it. Suddenly, AI scores were skyrocketing, and it's because students had been using GPT-5 up until that point. The detector was not that effective at capturing it. We released the update, and suddenly AI scores exploded. Faculty were confused. They were frustrated, rightly so. And so we realized we need to change how we do things. So now what we're doing is we have a team staffed that is made for making updates at the short term. We're working with the AI companies to get access to the models beforehand so we can close that gap. But I think it's just important to know that with an AI detector, anytime a new model is released, we have to test the detector to ensure that it's capturing all of that. And that's the nature. And every AI detector has to do that. It's not just unique to ours. Every single one has to do that too. So I think that's just important to call out and acknowledge in case you experience some of that too. In terms of, I can see something in chat about false positives. So we have conducted an analysis on our false positive rate. So if you remember when I talked about that 700,000 piece of academic writing sample size that we run our detector on before we roll it out to make sure we're maintaining that low false positive rate, what we did was we analyzed when we get it wrong, when we think that this human written text was potentially AI generated, what sorts of similarities are we seeing in this style of writing? And we came up with 3 things, and these are outlined in our FAQs. The 3 things are if the sentences are listing things and they don't have a ton of structural variation. If you look at this entire second paragraph, this was written by ChatGPT, but if you look at this entire second paragraph, rise of digital entertainment, increased academic pressures, urbanization. Okay, the next sentence, parents, educators, policymakers. Okay, next sentence is listing things. So if your students are writing like that, we might think it's AI generated content. The 2 others are that if students are writing text that literally repeats itself or text that has been paraphrased without developing new ideas, it could be AI generated, potentially. Or we would think of that, we would flag it as potentially AI generated. it should not be happening with any sort of frequency, like I said, because if our false positive rate increase, that makes the tool feel very unhelpful. We are actually also as a company more willing to miss some AI generated content than falsely accuse a student of having used it. That does not mean that we're going to get it right 100% of the time. I'm sure there are situations where a student has written the content and we thought that it may be AI generated. That's why you have to have this conversation, right? And so I mean, that's, uh, yes, okay. Also make sure you click on the link in the chat, that Ashley dropped so you can get attendance. I mean, Erica, I will be honest, that's really disheartening to hear that students are changing the way that they write in order to avoid detection by AI. I will tell you that's not the intention. And I hope that's not the reality either. And if it is, you can click this little logo button and tell our product team that we're getting it wrong with consistency. But like I said, the intention is not to scare students at all. Ultimately, the purpose behind the detector is that we want you, the instructor, to know if we think that AI was used, converse with your student, because what we don't want you doing is giving a degree to a student who didn't actually do the work or do the thinking, right? And obviously there are trade-offs, and I know it's hard, and I know that, you know, we're all trying to learn. But that's honestly upsetting to hear that students are so terrified that they're changing the way that they write. That tells me that something's, off. And I don't know if it's something larger, like a policy, or if the detector is a little bit, I don't quite know. So yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, but that's truly not the intention. Like I said, the intention is for this to be something to just give you, the instructor, a little bit more information and to converse with your student. It's not asking the student to change the way that they write. So
Danielle,
yeah,
can
of
I just say
course.
something? I have had students say to me, Dr. Allen, I like to use this in my writing, and I know that that's something that AI picks up. So I just want you to know I didn't use AI, but I like to use this, and this is the way I write. And so I think, to Erica's point, our students know, and they've been educated, some of them, on some of these common things that AI detectors pick up, and they are worried, some of them, about being targeted based on, I can't remember the right word, but like the long dash.
The M
They're
dashes,
worried.
sure,
Yeah.
sure. No, I totally hear you. I mean, I love an M dash. I use M dashes all the time. I think they're more commonly used than people might think. I mean, if large language models are trained on the whole of writing on the internet and it uses an M dash that frequently, we can't be the only ones. Everybody must like an M dash. I will say, I don't know. So this paper that I just dropped into chat, it's very technical. I am not a technical person. I'm a former English teacher, and I've been at Turnitin for 10 years. When I read this, a lot of it flew over my head. But this is a look under the hood at how our AI detector works. Even if you don't understand everything in this paper, I think it does a good job at explaining to you how the detector was created, what it's looking for. Hopefully that'll give you and hopefully your students just a little bit more confidence when you're reading the report. Oh no, I also love a semicolon. Also, Stacy, that's kind of funny. Um, yeah,
Can
that's
I
great.
can I ask
Sure.
another another question. I know we're getting right at time, but it's just
Yeah.
important stuff to talk about. I've had some conversations with some units, and so we're seeing a couple of things. One thing is that we think that some students are going to turnitin.com to run their paper to see what their score will be ahead of time. So then a question has come up if that they do that for whatever reason. Will it show up as self-plagiarism? Will there be there, is there, I think it's kind of similar to Lindley's point, right? Like if a student is submitting things multiple times in draft form, is it going to show up as self-plagiarism? If they're in a class, it happens in our graduate classes where they're building on their research over time and then they're using some of that. Will it show up as self-plagiarism or plagiarism in general because it's just showing up as student papers? Do you have any thoughts on how to address that?
Sure, that's a good question. So, one thing that I didn't mention about the AI writing report is students cannot see this. This is for instructor eyes only. Instructors have to download it in order for students to see it. Now, the same goes for, not exactly the same, but students, even if they were given access to turnitin.com, can't run their papers through unless they are enrolled in a class and an instructor built an assignment. Unless they're added as an instructor, which is a very different, you get very different access, but students should not be able to run their paper anywhere except for an instructor built assignment. Or if they're going to turnitin.com, an instructor built class and an instructor built assignment. Honest, or simply because we want that student teacher relationship to be there. I understand that it's nice to be able to run the paper through, but instructors can build out Turnitin assignments and not store things in the repository and allow for multiple submissions to give students that opportunity before they grade a piece of work to sort of pre-check their content. But students should not have the ability to run a paper without an instructor building an assignment. And so if that's happening, that means graduate students are being given instructor access to Turnitin, and we don't necessarily want that happening. Now, graduate advisors might be running papers on their behalf, in which case I think there was some talk internally about potentially giving access to Canvas to folks who might not normally use it. That way you can build out Turnitin assignments with a little bit more structure. You can set up the assignment so papers aren't being ran through, because I know that's been causing a lot of support tickets and
Yeah,
stuff.
that's, I think we realized we kind of got down to that about a week and a half ago that yes, that what had been happening was access was being given unintentionally. We just, not unintentionally, we just needed to fill in some gaps. But I think some of it is, and I don't know if it's your detector or another detector, but it has to do with that student fear. So I think they think if they can run their paper through and see what it's like, then maybe they'll, there's all sorts of things. So that's helpful. We are definitely addressing it on our side in terms of the access for graduate students, particularly.
Okay, perfect. Jason asked a really good question about where should we go if we need help. And I unfortunately have to run to another call right now. So I'm hoping that person's waiting patiently in the waiting room. But I do want to just say Help Center. Our support team is on 24/7. They're a great resource. You can fill out a form. I encourage you to fill out as much information here as possible so they are just ready to start troubleshooting. Also, the guide that I dropped earlier in chat, this is also a great resource. You can just search any keyword and it'll pull up a help guide for you. So between the Help Center and the help guides, those should be good resources. You have a really great administrative team too, that can pass questions along to your customer success manager, Megan, who is fantastic. I wish I had the time to be able to support you, but you see, I have another meeting right now. So I just don't have the capacity, unfortunately, but you have a really great team there to support you. So
Okay.
I appreciate all of your time and attention, but like I said, I have to jump. So thanks everybody. And if you do have questions.
Thank you. This was helpful. And if we have more questions, we can gather those on our side and send them to Megan.
Yeah, that'll be perfect. All right. Thanks everybody. Have a great Friday. Bye
Thanks,
bye.
Megan. Bye. Yeah, you all can email us at the CFD, cfd@usm.edu if you have other questions. Okay. Thanks so much, everybody.
Yes.
Have a great Friday.
Bye.